Expert Panel 10, Financing the Bioeconomy Transformation. My name is Shobha Shetty. I'm the Global Director for the Agriculture and Food Department at the World Bank in Washington. And a very warm welcome to this wonderful expert panel that we have assembled here today, where we discuss the timely and important topic of financing the bioeconomy transformation. As we heard yesterday at the opening ceremony, this is a key aspect to the whole bioeconomy transformation that needs to happen today. A big thank you also to our hosts, the German government. Today, we gather to explore the pivotal role that innovative financing can play in driving the bioeconomy forward, ensuring sustainable development, and addressing some of the most pressing challenges of our time. Taking a circular bioeconomy approach to food systems transformation is a huge opportunity to leverage biological resources for sustainable development, encompassing the production and conversion of biomass into food, energy, and bioproducts. Agriculture, as a cornerstone of the bioeconomy, provides crucial livelihoods and food security for millions of people worldwide. And agriculture is also a foundation for local entrepreneurship, employment, and social development in many countries, providing the raw materials for bioproduct manufacturing and driving innovation across industries. As I mentioned in yesterday's opening ceremony, the food system is a major driver for the breaching of 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries as of 2023. This sector, unfortunately, is responsible for 1/3 of global emissions, 2/3 of deforestation, 2/3 of freshwater use, and is a key driver for soil degradation and air and water pollution. The over-application of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, which historically raised agricultural productivity during the Green Revolution days, has also now contributed to a degradation of almost 1/4 of global soils and water pollution through runoffs. Furthermore, inadequate animal waste disposal and burning crop residues also exacerbates air pollution. So together, the externalities generated by the linear food system that we have today in terms of the human health, environment, and social costs amount to almost $12.7 trillion in hidden costs. But let's just not blame agriculture. Agriculture also has the potential to heal the planet. It can and must pivot towards greater productivity, efficiency, and sustainability. This is a non-negotiable. A food transition is just as important as the energy transition in getting us to net zero. But this transition demands substantial investments in new business models, advanced technologies, and resilient practices. Formal and long-term financing is especially critical to enable this shift, ensuring that farmers and agribusinesses have the resources to adopt sustainable practices that contribute to the bioeconomy, while at the same time delivering broad economic and environmental benefits. Our recent flagship report, Recipe for a Livable Planet, shows that the agri-food system accounts for roughly 1/3 of all emissions, as I mentioned earlier, but the sector attracts only 4% of global climate finance. And yet the reality is that the health, economic, and environmental costs benefits far outweigh the costs. And many of these opportunities for cutting agri-food emissions are in middle-income countries. These countries are where 3/4 of the opportunities exist, where emissions can be cut in a cost-effective way. 15 of these countries account for almost 2/3 of these opportunities. There are also big opportunities in low and high-income countries to cut emissions and gain economically. Further, the agri-food system is a huge untapped source of low-cost climate action, including triple wins like biochar and bioenergy, which can enhance, reuse agricultural waste to cut costs, emissions, and pollution in many settings when deployed at scale. Therefore, increasing financial flows and channeling climate finance towards the bioeconomy and agri-food systems is paramount to accelerate the shift to sustainable agri-food systems, unlocking the full potential of the bioeconomy to address global challenges and deliver inclusive green growth. The World Bank Group has set an ambitious goal to transform agri-finance and agribusiness We aim to double our financing from $4.5 billion today to $9 billion annually by 2030. This commitment underscores our dedication to supporting sustainable agricultural practices and enhancing food security. Today, we are joined by many leading experts who will share their valuable insights on innovative financing mechanisms, public-private partnerships, and policy frameworks that are essential for advancing the bioeconomy. I am really glad to have this opportunity to discuss this very important topic with our esteemed panelists. We will start the panel discussion with a keynote from my good friend and colleague, Panos Varangis, Principal Operations Officer and Global Lead in Agricultural Finance at IFC. Panos leads the global program to promote agricultural finance through financial institutions and has worked as an industry specialist in a number of investment services and advisory projects across many regions in the world. So over to you, Panos, and after which I will introduce our esteemed panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Shobha, very much for the kind introduction and also placing a lot of attention on the finance, because in the end, you know, no matter what we do, there is a significant financing that needs to be done, and we can discuss on that. Okay, so my background is in finance and in agriculture finance. And I'm trying to look at the bioeconomy transition as a way that a banker would approach it. So first of all, I try to get into my mind what is bioeconomy transition and how does it relate to climate smart agriculture or sustainable agriculture, which is basically a lot of our work is in this area. So it's not one or the other, and I think it was discussed yesterday. I think it's part, the sustainable bioeconomy, it's part of a sustainable agriculture or a climate smart agriculture strategy. And at IFC and the World Bank Group in general, the climate smart agriculture has three key pillars. One is the reduction, it's to make agriculture more productive, particularly doing more with less. More output with less inputs, whether this is land, chemicals, seeds, whatever, it's to do more with less. The second one is that climate change is here, and we are seeing actually phenomena that they are more rare and they become more frequent and more severe. So agriculture has to adapt that. We are seeing droughts, off-season type of frosts and hails. So agriculture needs to adapt into that and becomes more resilient. So production is more stable as well as higher. And the third one is, of course, we need its mitigation. We need also to, with adaptation, we need also to address the remaining risks. And of course, agriculture needs to result in higher incomes for the farmers and better living conditions. So this is how we try to define it across these three axes, and it's all of them. They need to happen pretty much at the same time. You cannot pick up productivity and leave adaptation. So it has to be a combination of all three. Just to simplify how do we classify investments, we have four buckets. One is the animal protein. The second one is around land and crops and focusing basically around precision farming, doing more with less. The third one, actually, it's a very important one. It's the reduction of food losses. In many countries that we work, 30 to 40% of the production is lost after the crop is harvested. I mean, imagine, we can increase in many countries food production by a significant amount just by making sure that the goods are stored after harvest and processed. So this is some types of proper storage facilities can achieve this, and it doesn't take actually high tech or high technology, although I have seen some very interesting storage facilities, even in Nigeria, where they have these huge polypropylene bags that are multiple use, and you can store up to 150 tons of grains on the farm, and you can zip it and take out the air, and you have zero losses. And the crop is stored in the land. It can flood and nothing happens, no pests, nothing. So and it becomes very affordable. Each of these bags is like $15,000 and lasts for more than 10 years. So there are solutions, and we think that this is a very low-hanging fruit. And the third is the energy efficiency, renewables, and of course water efficiency. Is that how we can produce energy through agriculture. These are some of the examples where the sustainable agriculture and bioeconomy interact. A very interesting example is an investment that the IFC and IDB have done in Brazil to replace synthetic fibers with wood-based cellulose ones. Another one is in Kenya with oil seed farmers to produce bio combustibles. Also on the reduction of the food waste, there is a World Bank group program. It's called Global Warehouse Finance Program, which finances crops in storage facilities and promotes improved handling and storage after harvest. The end user, so what are the challenges? I mean, all of this is great, and we think that it's a low-hanging fruit, but what are the challenges? The biggest challenge is the lack of knowledge. When we go and we talk to clients, whether this is financial institutions, agro-businesses, or farmers, one of the things is that a lot of these things is not known. Or even if it's known, it's very uncertain to them what is going to result. So they say, you tell me that if I do this, this will happen. How do I know? Is there any demonstration plots? For example, I was impressed when I visited in Guanajuato in Mexico with CIMMYT. CIMMYT has farms on the side of regular farms, and they show different practices, leveling the area, putting drought-resistant seeds, and they show the results. And you are a farmer, and the farm is next to you, and that has a tremendous impact when you see it with your own eyes. I mean, I took pictures, and I thought the work of CIMMYT in central Mexico, in Bajío, is very, very impactful, and also guides similar work in other countries. So I think this demonstration effect is lacking, and I mentioned CIMMYT, but there is not many places where you can find a CIMMYT experimental farms. I saw them also in Ethiopia, too, the CIMMYT farms. But so there is a lot more that we can do. There is also some resistance to change. I mean, the average age of farmers in most countries is in the late 50s. So, learning an old dog, new tricks, as they say, so it gets a little bit tricky. That's why, the young generation, bringing in the youth in agriculture and these new technologies, actually, it's something where the digital technologies are also enticing young farmers to engage, because it's not your grandfather's business. You see that there is something different, and you are willing to engage. It's not the back-breaking jobs that your grandfathers were doing. There are also other priorities. A lot of particularly smallholder farmers, the main priority is to put food on the table and to send the kids to pay the school fees. So there are other pressing priorities, particularly as we go down to the bottom of the pyramid, where poverty is very high. So, you try to feed yourself first before you think what is going to happen. We also do not find a lot of the solutions that they are available, and more solutions that we find is around micro drip irrigation, solar panels. These are quite disseminated, some on the silo business, but there are a lot of other technologies that we're speaking here that they are not available. The providers are not in many of the countries that we work with. And also, it's a very important thing. How do you incentivize change? When we land and people, they hear, green finance, they say, how much lower my interest rate will be? What are you going to give me a higher prices? And in the short run, we can do these schemes. You can pay someone more, you can give them a break, but these are not truly market mechanisms. And when these pilot projects end, what is going to happen? You don't want things to go back to the good, bad days. So it's how can we have a permanent system? And, the subsidies, one thing that needs to be emphasized is that the prices today, they don't internalize the environmental externalities. And that's a big issue. So the subsidies come to correct for this, but sometimes they're too little and too late. And finally, for the financial institutions, what Shobha said, they're not much of the agriculture. Actually, in most countries that we work with, it's less than 3% of the portfolio goes to agriculture. So, and agriculture accounts for 20–25% of the GDP, particularly in the lower income countries. So agriculture is underfunded to begin with, and the banks finance more the export crops, the coffee, the cocoa. They don't finance the food crops, particularly with smallholder farmers. Financing, if it exists, is very short term, working capital, 4, 5, 6 months. Here we may need to invest for years. The other thing is also the benefits, they don't come immediately. So if you do these practices, the benefits may come in 3 or 4 or 5 years. So how do you convince someone to invest so much, take on debt, and then say, oh, but, in 3 or 4 years, you're going to be better off. And then it's limited also monitor reporting and validation capacity. And, the challenge also of trying to finance the small businesses. From a bank, what is the main perspective? From the bank side is the new market. There is a new market that it is untapped and can be significant. The investment that they are needed to transition to the bioeconomy 2.0 or 3.0, they are substantial. Another benefit for banks is that, and we have seen that, it's not, what I'm going to say is not something statistically proven, but when we talk and hearsay from our clients, they told us people who invest to be more resilient, for more productive, they tend actually to be a better performing clients. And the non-performing loans are very low, including, like I was talking to a client in Honduras who was telling me, on this portfolio on climate smart agriculture, our NPLs is 0. Basically, people who invest in these new technologies that they're more productive, more resilient, they are also less risky. So you have a less risky, which is another justification also to give better terms to these people, lower interest rates. And finally, it's the profile of the bank vis-a-vis regulators. The regulators are getting more and more stringent about where do banks lend, and not only to report on credit risk, but also on E&S type of risks. So it's improved the financial disclosure, and also in some cases also can open up new investors, the green bonds that they can be, and reduce the cost of capital. The way that we are trying to approach this is a lot is about the marketing intelligence. We try to do work with specialized consultants on identify opportunities and prioritize these opportunities, particularly opportunities that they will give short-term benefits and convey as close to immediate benefits. The other thing is also nobody will fix things alone. So there are partnerships that they are being formed with large agro-businesses that they want sustainability because they need to be selling milk or meat or whatever products. So they need to do that in the future. And so how do you make your value chain more sustainable? So there is the demand by the large businesses, and how do you bring sustainability down to all your supply chain? So these partnerships with input dealers, with equipment, with buyers, with international organizations like us and others are very critical. De-risking is very important because the banks, they basically move to an unknown. It's a new business for them. They are not certain about the returns and what is going to happen to the client. So providing some guarantees on certain portfolios of farmers or agro-businesses that they invest in sustainable technologies can be a game changer and can increase the penetration of finance and helps this. Capacity building towards the whole value chain from farmers for SME businesses is critical. And also sometimes, start small and scale up. And the three game changers that our President Ajay mentioned during the annual meetings is we see a proliferation of climate finance solution. More and more banks speak, and I think the panel will also mention that. Digitization of agriculture, we have more data that we can exploit and use, and that can give us craft new solutions. There is new agtechs that out there in many parts of the world that they digitize the value chains and provide more data that we can analyze, and the de-risking solutions that I mentioned. And I will finish with a short example. We did a study in Colombia. You can see the size of the market that Colombia will need to invest to transition into a climate smart is between $3 to $6 billion US. This is a substantial amount of money. And you can see the priority areas is irrigation and water management, agroforestry, energy efficient livestock, and livestock land management. We also work as IFC with Davivienda, an important bank in Colombia, on a green bond of $50 million US. And you can see the reforestation, regeneration, climate smart, and circular economy. And actually in Colombia, there is a lot of absorption of this funding. There is quite advanced awareness and knowledge, and through the financial sector. With this, I'll finish. I hope I was on time. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Panos, for a very stimulating stage setting. Let me now welcome our esteemed panelists to the stage. So let me start with, we have a particular order here, so let me make sure that I'm doing the right order. Mr. Alan Elizondo, Director General of FIRA from Mexico. Alan, welcome. Dr. Firio Tegenye, Deputy Director General of the Ethiopian Agricultural Transformation Institute, ATI. Dominica Zavala, Board Member of Paraguay's Development Finance Agency. Welcome. And Mr. Richard Pikowski, Lead Financing the Bioeconomy from Rabobank. I hope I've pronounced all your names correctly. Welcome. So we will start with having short opening statements from each of our distinguished panelists, after which we will open it up to a moderated discussion that I will lead. And then hopefully we have about 10 to 15 minutes for a Q&A session from the audience. Okay, so let's start with you, Dr. Elizondo. So you're welcome to make your intervention, and yes, I think the presentation is on the screen. Over to you.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. I would like to start by thanking the World Bank for the invitation to listen for this case, the Mexican case, and also making it possible for me to be here. I will start by telling you what kind of country, why the bioeconomy is a concept that is particularly prone for development in Mexico. But most importantly for me, I will emphasize how a financial institution from the government, like FIRA, is in a privileged position to enhance this concept in the country. So if we go to the next slide. Thank you. Well, some statistics about our country. The first one is that climate change has been affecting small producers. If you see the maps that the International Panel on Climate Change publishes, you will find out that Mexico, particularly the northern part of Mexico, is more than above average affected by heat waves or droughts. So this has been happening at the same time as realizing that our agricultural economy is conformed by small producers. So we think that this is the bioeconomy, and using natural inputs is one of the solutions that are important to implement in a country like ours. The second is that we have a large fragmentation of land. If you realize it, in the US, you have 2.8 times more producers than in Mexico, you have 2.8 times more producers than in the USA. And the average size of the plot in Mexico is 5.9 hectares as compared to 188 hectares in the US. So as you might imagine, extensive agriculture is not exactly the dominant mode of producing in Mexico. It's more fragmented. And this is an opportunity, but also a challenge. If we want to make the bioeconomy to work, you will have to work differently than in a country like the US. So I will give provide some ideas and the projects that we have developed to go through that challenge. The third one is, has been mentioned by Panos, the presence of the CIMMYT. The northern state of Sonora has been the cradle of the Green Revolution, the production of wheat in the 1960s. And this has had the obvious benefits for the population of producing more wheat, elevating the productivity of plots close to 8 or 9 tons per hectare. But in the same way, this revolution has left cultural practices that are, to the date, very difficult to change. So I will also enter into more detail. Mexico is one of 17 biologically mega-diverse countries. So it's a center of domestication of genetic diversity of 200 species, such as, for example, corn, chili, and beans. Finally, and not least important, is the Mexican producing and agricultural economy is oriented for the export. The North American bloc is mostly fed by Mexican production, not grains, but horticultural products. And one trend we see, and this starts to consolidate, is the fact that this export industry is a very important motor for change. For example, companies like Driscoll's on the berries market or Danone work in Mexico and have been introducing several benefits for producers that are adopting conservation agriculture practices, etc. So this is something, a reality, and this is something that we consider it also an opportunity for our country. So the big question is how National Development Bank can influence change. So I will start first by talking about the institution. FIRA is a public second-tier bank, and it's managed by the central bank. So it's a very few institutions that work like this in our country. And our main role is to finance the agricultural sector. Mexican banking system is conformed by 5 dominant banks, but not one single one specializes in agriculture. Our institution does, and works in partnership with not only these 5 banks, but a network of 150 financial intermediaries to provide agricultural finance to the sector. Now, having this architecture, how can we intervene? First thing is to develop a strategy. So I will start with the number 6, which is multilateral partnering and knowledge sharing. So when we started this in the 2012, 2013, the first question was, what do we think is green financing? What is beneficial for the environment? So we partnered with global multilateral institutions such as the World Bank, KfW, which works here, l'Agence Française de Développement, the French, and the IDB, which is our local multilateral bank. And we imported some of the principles that are used in other countries, such as Europe. We understood how to name the concept that will mean something beneficial for the environment, and that is something generally accepted in other geographies. So we built a taxonomy. This taxonomy was first published in 2015 and consisted of 4 families of concepts. One family related to irrigation. Second one is about agriculture that is friendly to the environment. The third one is the conservation of energy. And basically, the fourth one has to do also with energy, more efficient use of energy. So if you take these 4 families, you take, then you deduce 55 investment concepts, and then you talk about the same in Mexico, and this is consistent with other geographies. Once you have this green finance taxonomy, then you enter into the other side of this circle. You do a specialized financing. So if you are a smallholder that is using one of these 55 concepts, then it is our work in the bank to provide you with a better financing terms. So the European Union provided our institution with a fund to provide interest rate discounts for smallholders that were using those technologies. The second one is de-risking. We develop guarantee products. So if you have, for example, a bank that is financing these concepts, then we can cover a significant percentage of the risk of that project. For example, our most used product covers 65% of the losses that might come from a project that has been financed in that direction. So this will be, well, it's a large family of guarantee products, but this is a second tool that our institution has been using. The third one is the introduction to digital and precision agriculture technologies. This might not be the role of a private bank, typically, but we believe that this is the role of a national public entity. So what does it mean? Well, we do a search on what are the providers or suppliers of these technologies, and then we mix these suppliers with the consumers. We have a very interesting case in the Sonora state where the Green Revolution was born, where we have brought these companies that provide the use of drones to map what is the need of nitrogen in the hectares. And then once you have that map, you are in a better position to apply nitrogen in the specific places that are needed. So if you bring this technology, and we did that in 2022 in a particular year where the chemical inputs were very expensive. So there was an increased interest for using technologies that would lower the use of chemical inputs. So this was a third effort that has been growing, and it is, as a financial institution, as Panos was mentioning, something very, very useful because you have a more resilient client with better economics, which is one of the key selection tools that we have for new technology. That it has to represent a benefit for the producer. The fourth one is biofertilizer nudging. We call it like that. It's basically using subsidies to make producers use these biofertilizers. We see several barriers of producers to use natural inputs, and one of them is the cost. So we do an 80% subsidy on biofertilizers for them to test them and then use it, and then we reduce the subsidy gradually. And finally, the fifth one is technical assistance. I will not enter in much detail. Panos just mentioned the work of the CIMIT in Guanajuato. We do exactly the same thing. We have 5 centers where we have hectares that have been planted, and we practice since 1990 conservation agriculture. So the specific role we play is that we do the mathematics for the producers on how, if they use this technology, they can lower their cost and then make their soil more resilient for the future. So this represents also benefits. I would not like to take more time, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Alan. Could I please ask Dr. Ferio Tegenye, Deputy Director General of the Ethiopian Agricultural Transformation Institute, for his intervention, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, moderator. I would like to start by thanking the World Bank and the German government for hosting us, for inviting me here. I did my PhD here. I left Berlin 18 years back, so I'm able to come back because of the World Bank. Thank you very much. My talk will be on ATI, which is a very unique organization. It was established in 2010 by the support of a financing organization, BMGF, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So financing goes back to the establishment of the institution. And it has a very clear mandate from the very beginning. The approach, it started as a think tank, but currently we are like serving as a catalyst to transform the agriculture sector. And the agriculture sector is actually the major bioeconomic sector in the country, contributing 32% of the GDP, 75% of the export value, and nearly 70% of the people depend on agriculture. So it means a lot. ATI serves as I could say, a technical arm, a speedboat to transform Ethiopian agriculture from one path to the other. And as you can see, there are 5 paths we have set from the very beginning of the establishment of ATI. And currently, we are to the third phase, that is contribution to growth. And how we came to that, we have this mandate. I have to go back to the mandates. And those mandates are clear. First is to identify the bottlenecks of transforming Ethiopian agriculture. So it is a system-level study. ATI so far has done nearly 400 studies, and I feel happy to announce that 82% of the studies are being implemented. And the reason behind, because they are demand-driven. The government is asking for a study, and ATI does that, and it is being implemented. And one example is the WHEAT initiative. I'll be talking more about. And that initiative has been recognized by FAO that we are able to produce 230 million quintals. A quintal is 100 kg of wheat per year. Very significant change, actually, including irrigation. And once we have, identified the problems, those who are from the academia know that we do research, we make recommendations, that's all. But ATI has this mandate of showing that the solutions proposed, recommended, are working by having innovative projects, and that is the second mandate of ATI, that we need to show that that solution, that recommendation is working. Well, there are so many showcases, you know, sustainability is a problem, scaling is a problem. Here comes this capacity problem that, for example, we are accountable to the Ministry of Agriculture. We showcase, we demonstrate, but then they don't have the capacity. So we give implementation support as the third mandate. And agriculture goes beyond its sector. It's really cross-sectoral. And there is this need for linkage and coordination, and that is the fourth mandate. And we do implement in every region of the country. Probably the last statements we are doing, well, I said agriculture is a major bioeconomic sector. So in terms of every measure, I could say ATI is really doing fantastic as a unique organization in Ethiopia. One of the flagship programs of ATI is actually ACC, the Agricultural Commercialization Cluster. You know, we are dominated by, or we have the subsistence agriculture. That is the first phase I was mentioning. So farmers do have small plots of land. The average land a farmer has, much less than Mexico, is 0.8 hectares. So there is a need to bring them together voluntarily in a cluster so that they can benefit from technologies, mechanization, inputs, and services, advisory services. So we promote this agricultural commercialization cluster in 311 districts of the country, almost in every region, I could say. And we are able actually to mobilize our own resources. ATI, I should mention this, is a government institution, but practically it is independent because we are mobilizing 99.9% of the resources, our budget, from external sources. So that privileges, that gives us the privilege to experiment on innovative projects. And of those innovative projects, you can see the, well, I have to be a bit closer, I'm sorry. Digital agriculture is one, Panos was mentioning about that. Rural finance is another one, as you can see. Agribusiness and marketing, irrigation. We actually studied the shallow water potential for irrigation of the country. And by using shallow water irrigation, we can cultivate actually more than 3 million hectares of land. And solar is a source of energy, again, renewable energy. So irrigation is very important there. Input and mechanization is there. And we have finances from Denmark, Danida. And Danida is a major contributor of our finance, this time about $76 million US. But they put this mark that 50% has to be spent on climate-smart agriculture. That's a precondition. And the Rio markers have to be indicated and so on and so on. So we are happy with that. The Netherlands government, Norway, EU, the France Development Association, AFD, USAID, GIZ, all are supporting. And the major contributor this time, again, is the World Bank. They are supporting rural connectivity project, a very big project, by the way. Why? Because we do have infrastructure of limited network, I could say. And you know, through ACC, our farmers were able to produce enough, but they were not able to market it because they don't have the warehouse, they don't have the transport linkage, the network, and so on and so on. So World Bank is supporting us in building the infrastructure, and ATI is responsible for the digital part, and that is increasing actually access to finance for the farmers. We are working on, for example, the digital market linkage platform, where we have a hotline that farmers can call for free and get agricultural advisory services, a marketplace, and the National Market Information System is also there. So we are really like the champion, actually responsible to digitalize agriculture in Ethiopia. Well, down there on the right, bottom are the flagship programs ATI did during its 50 years, well, almost, establishment. The Ethiopian Soil Information System, MAP, is there. So fertilizer rate and so on, all can be decided based on that data. And you can imagine the economic and environmental advantages of having such data. Integrated water, shallow groundwater mapping, I mentioned about this, and the Ethiopian investment mapping, all that has been done by ATI. Finally, on the right, finally, on the right, you can see top is what we call ADE. It is a project, agriculture-focused, dignified employment for youth. 80% young women, 4% young disabled, and so on. And that is actually a fund from MasterCard Foundation, and we are expected actually to let 611,000 youths have opportunities based on agriculture. Ethiopia is an agrarian country. It is a very young country. 70% of the people are young, and agriculture is not attractive for young people. It has to be digital. The technology should play there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tegene. Could I please ask Mrs. Dominica Zavala, board member of Paraguay's Development Finance Agency, for her intervention, please. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's almost good evening. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the World Bank for having us. I know that Paraguay's voice is not a voice that you see often in these types of panels. So I'm going to kick off my presentation. I'm a board member of Paraguay's Development Bank. It's also a second-tier development bank. Unlike FIDA, we do all types of sectors, and we work on long-term financing for housing, SMEs, and now a lot on green financing. So, there we go. Just a little bit on Paraguay, because I know it's a very unknown country. When people listen about South America, they think about Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and especially in nature-positive discussions on conservation. And I just want to give you a little bit of context on Paraguay's natural capital. Paraguay has 44% of its territory covered by native forests. That's 18 million hectares. That is 50% of the German territory, 74% of the UK territory, 3 times the size of Ghana, and 1.5 times the size of Uruguay. So you have to imagine how important that abundant natural capital is. We share 4 very important ecosystems, a lot of them with Brazil. We have the Pantanal, which is the biggest wetland in the world, that hosts one of the most biodiverse regions in the world. We have the Atlantic forest, that we also have one of the biggest conservations of Atlantic forests available. A lot of them were in Brazil, but a lot of them were deforested for agriculture. We also have we have the Chaco, which is the dry Chaco, and the húmedo Chaco, which we share with Argentina and Bolivia, which is a very important biodiverse ecosystem. And we also share the Cerrado with Brazil, which is now a lot in the climate talks. I want to give you a little bit of sense of who we are. You know, Paraguay is it's a landlocked country stuck in the middle of South America. We have been a very stable country for the past 20 years, and we also have done a lot which is not listened or not known a lot on the nature agenda and on the climate agenda. Paraguay has the highest production of hydroelectricity in the world. We have 3 big hydroelectricity dams, one we share with Brazil, which is the highest production of hydroelectricity in the world. We are committed to conserving 30% of that land which I discussed to protected areas. An additional 18% through that 30% is also in private legal reserves. We have passed last year our carbon law for the registry of carbon credit projects. We're still not as developed as other countries such as Colombia or Brazil. We have passed a zero deforestation law on the eastern region of Paraguay, which prohibits clearing all types of native forests so that abundant natural capital that we were discussing is able to be conserved. We also have an additional law that requires landowners to conserve at least 25% of the native forest covers in areas where they can deforest, which is in the northern side. And also we have a national forest monitoring system that discloses deforestation maps. Paraguay has been a very stable country, as I said. We have had one of the highest economic performance in the region. We were recently upgraded to investment grade, which is very important for the country. We have very low unemployment. We have decreased poverty rates significantly, and we also have decreased Gini inequality index by 10 points. And a lot of this has been also banked on a very stable growth, and we are very mindful of the importance of climate because over a third of our GDP depends on climate, on agriculture, the navigability of our rivers, the production of our energy, and obviously climate change impacts are evident. We've had terrible droughts, one of the most terrible droughts in 2020, which wiped out almost 60% of the agricultural production. Given this and against this background, we have put in place a lot of innovative mechanisms that we are very proud to discuss here. Paraguay was one of the first countries to be part of the Resilient Climate Facility from the IMF. We were able to disperse almost, I think, over 500 million in SDRs for new types of policy commitments. We are actively pursuing climate financing. We were one of the first countries to join IDB Clima program, which is our regional development bank. And as our institution, we are now pioneering on sustainability-linked financing, working a lot with the World Bank on the forestry sector and also now on the livestock sector. Just a little bit to understand, sorry. Just a quick going on the key issues on why development banks were created and our role has managed to change across time. But we were created mostly to solve long-term financing failures and market failures. This is where we discuss housing, renewable energy, forestry. But we are now called into action, have a pivotal role on sustainable finance products. So we were discussing about how to scale financing for the bioeconomy, and development banks are absolutely necessary. National development banks are absolutely necessary. Facilitating access to infrastructure, obviously promoting innovation. I cannot emphasize this enough. Obviously in the bioeconomy, this is absolutely critical. And supporting strategic sectors, particularly in developing economies. A lot of them are SME companies, so we need to integrate them into the different value chains. We are, in IFD, we are committed to sustainable finance. We were the first bank to issue sustainable bonds. And since this was almost a year ago, since then we've done 4 issuances in the local capital markets, over $70 million. And we are funneling a lot of that money, not only on the social products, but also on the green products that we have in our portfolio, which is Proforestal, which looks at sustainable production of forestry. We're financing energy efficiency projects. And that's another chapter that we would delve in. But also now we're incorporating circular economy projects, and we have launched the first product of the sustainable livestock, which we are very, very proud because for almost 10 years, different organizations were trying to build this product on banks. And I think that once the local development bank got inside and tried to build trust with the producers, they were a key role in building this product. I want to kind of leave you with these 10 learnings that for me were absolutely critical, that to scale, we need sustainable financial products that work. First of all, when we're building financial products on the sustainable, particularly on the sustainability agenda, we need to focus on one problem at a time. Tackle single issues, we need to do rapid testing and adapt approach. We cannot solve every problem with one product. So I think it's tackling single issues and rapid testing is very important. Accessibility and affordability, we need to collaborate with the early adopters. We talked a lot about those early innovators that want to incorporate these new technologies. We need to be able to work with them in early stages and drive consumer behavior change. I cannot emphasize this enough. We need to produce more with less, so we need to boost productivity. If there's projects that don't necessarily improve the well-being of that farmer or increases their performance, it will be very difficult to sustain these products. We need efficient monitoring systems. For those of you working in sustainable finance, you know how important it is to monitor these credits. They need to be low cost and they need to be easy to monitor. And they need be for the banking system, particularly the national banking system, they need to be able to incorporate this and be able to monitor efficiently. We need genuine financial support. I cannot emphasize this enough. We talk about concessional financing. Some of these concessional financing don't really arrive in developing countries and in developing markets as concessional. They have a ton of barriers to access. So it's very important that we provide true concessional financing enabled to support. And we need to work from this. We cannot ask 1,000 conditions from once. We need to build that. And that gives me to the next one is we need a collaborative engagement approach. We need to work to producers. They are not the enemy, they are the allies. And we need to avoid one-size-fits-all approach. And this is very important. Obviously, I'm here today with you on the global north and Europe that are technology makers. We are technology takers. We need affordable transition technologies to access that transitional technology and be able to integrate that. That is very important. We cannot have extremely high transaction costs and technologies that we are not able to finance. Obviously, from the financial standpoint, we need simplified indicators to develop a clear, measurable indicators for transparency in order to avoid greenwashing. We need an economic alignment. We need to align sustainability with economic growth. And also, that takes me to my last point, which is we need to balance objectives. It's not just about maximizing the environment. It's about having a balanced view from the economics, from the environmental aspect, and also from the social aspects. And we need to also understand that a lot of the technologies that we might be able to incorporate in these sectors will also mean not necessarily more jobs. So it has to improve the well-being of certain sectors. So with that, I leave you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dominika. So we have our final presenter, Mr. Richard Pikowski, lead financing the bioeconomy from Rabobank.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here to give a short presentation of Rabobank. I don't know who of you know the Rabobank. We are a Dutch bank, cooperative bank established in 1889, so we are more than 125 years old. Our model is based on the Raiffeisen model, the German major Raiffeisen, who introduced that model in the 19th century in Germany, and we use that model also in the Netherlands. A few, I would say, numbers. We are active in 36 countries. Our home market is, of course, Netherlands. We are all finance bank in the Netherlands. Our outstandings are about 535 billion. Outside the Netherlands, we are an international food and agri bank. We finance the whole food and ag, and we are active in the most important food and ag countries like Brazil, United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, of course, as well, and in Asia. And our outstandings are there 135 billion, and our net income in 2023 was 4.2 million. So we are quite a big bank on the food and agri side. And of course, if you talk about food and ag, we talk also about the bioeconomy, and we see also in the bioeconomy, and I think I have two slides. I think that if you look at the slide with hindsight, there's a kind of summary of what I have heard in the last 2 days. There are, I think, two important pillars. The first one is, of course, the sustainable agriculture, the farmers who would have to produce biomass sustainably. It's very important. Also looking at the environmental issues that we see, climate change, the biodiversity laws, but also social issues. And next to that, there's a very important pillar, and I was very happy to saw it this morning in the workshop about unlocking systemic innovative developments for the bioeconomy. that next to farming, the second pillar is the biotechnology. And talking about biotechnology, we talk about developing new bioproducts based on the green building blocks. And the green building blocks of the bioeconomy are nutrients, like proteins, carbohydrates, fats, oils, vitamins, enzymes, and minerals. And based on these green building blocks, you can produce a lot of new products. Talking about biomass, and of course, within this, I would say, conference, the focus is on food. It's a bioeconomy that is a sustainable economy. If it is not produced sustainable, it is not a bioeconomy, I would say, part of that. The bioeconomy will replace partly the petrochemical economy. That is what we want to achieve. And for that reason, if you look at the bioeconomy, food is one of the bioproducts that can be produced next to pharmaceuticals products, fine chemical products, performance materials for in the construction sector or in automotive, and last but not least, biofuels. Of course, you have to look at these, at the quality of these biomass, because you use high quality biomass for pharmaceuticals and for food, and low quality biomass for biofuels. And that's also to do with volumes, also to do with pricing. And so this is very important to look at this. If you ask me, okay, is the bioeconomy or is the biotechnology a competitor of farmers? No, it isn't. It's complementary. If we really want to feed all the people in the future who are coming on this earth, and then around 2050, around 10 billion people, and we need to feed all these mouths, you need next to the farmers also the new, I would say, food production systems. Because what we see is that the number of farmers are declining, less farmers available, while we need more food on less available land. So the only reason that we can produce enough food is biotechnology, together with farming, complementary each other. If you look at the biomass and you use this for different kind of purposes, then there's also discussion about so food versus biofuel, for example. I believe that we can produce enough food for all these different applications as long as we comply with two important preconditions. First of all, you have to secure food by disperse biomass equally and fairly around the world. There's also a problem nowadays. And secondly, also mentioned earlier today, you have to reduce food waste and food loss. It's still 1/3 of the food produced is lost, so that's too much. And of course, the bioeconomy, as I said, it is a decarbonized, sustainable economy based on circularity. Talking about then our support to small-scale farmers, the World Bank asked me what role can Rabobank play in the bioeconomy for small-scale farmers in developing countries. We do more, but I focus now on these topics. And if you look at this diagram, and you see the different, I would say, dots. If you connect these dots, then what we want to, what our objective, what we want to achieve is, we want to build a strong, sustainable, economic infrastructure in developing countries, because that is the basis for the bioeconomy. That's the basis also for developing countries to earn more money. And these different, I would say, financial initiatives are helping with that. And I will mention this very shortly. The first one is the farmer finance in collaboration with trade finance partners banks. So what we do is we have a trade finance department, and what is all about trade finance? You have a letter of credit. What is that? A financial product that a bank can issue to guarantee that the buyer's payment will be to the seller, so that the seller knows that he will be paid for the goods that he have sold to the other company. And next to the issuing bank, you have also the confirming bank. And in this network of banks, you not only discuss letter of credits, but you can and trade finance, but you can also discuss other topics, how you can work together on and to build that local economy. Secondly, we have developed together with GFFA Agri-Tree Fund. and Agri-Tree Fund, we developed it as a bank, but we have set outside the bank on arm's length. So as an independent entity, other banks can also invest, also governance, so the Dutch government has invested in that fund, and also FMO. And the purpose of that fund is to avoid deforestation, to improve the good agriculture practices, and very important, last but not least, also to improve the resilience of farmer families in these countries. So in the first, I would say, deal that we done was in China, where we have financed red pepper farmers who had a program to improve their sustainable agricultural practices. Rabo Foundation, the Farm Fit Fund is a fund established by the Dutch organization IDH, and helping also farmers become more resilient, and we are one of the investors in that fund and working together with IDH and other companies. Rabo Foundation, with the Rabo Foundation, we help cooperatives and support cooperatives with knowledge, IT knowledge, banking knowledge, to improve their, I would say, organization. And farmer cooperatives are a very important organization in many developing countries to support small-scale farmers. The Rabo Rural Fund is also supporting SMEs and cooperatives by giving pre-finance for purchase or processing or selling products. And you could say a kind of local training and commodity finance opportunity. Advisory services and financial management, Rabobank partnerships. There's an entity that support local banks with knowledge. So our knowledge that we have on finance, we share that with local banks in developing countries, and often colleagues of the bank, they go for a few weeks or months to that bank to help the bank in developing financial services for local SMEs and farmers. I had the opportunity to go to Uganda for the Rabo partnerships, where we looked at how can we help cooperatives who want to develop climate-smart agricultural solutions in a way that a local bank can understand what the financial need of the cooperative is. What we see is that the language that the cooperative use is another language that the bank use, and if there is a disconnection, then you don't want to, then you can't achieve, and I would say, an agreement on financing. Last but not least, Acorn. There's a quite new program of the bank where we finance farmers who plant new trees in an agroforestry system. These trees capture carbon. We, with high-tech innovation, satellite images, remote sensing, calculate the captured carbon that will be recalculated in carbon removal units, and the farmers can sell these units to companies within the supply chain. We call that insetting, or outside the supply chain, that is offsetting. And we are favor of insetting, because if you finance, or if the small-scale farmers can sell the carbon reduction units to other companies in the supply chain, then you can reduce the carbon emission of the whole supply chain. And there's an extra income stream for the small-scale farmers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard. Maybe a big round of applause for all our panelists for their really interesting presentations. Thank you very much. Let's get right into it. I have some follow-up questions for each of you, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A from the audience. Maybe I'll start with you, Alan. How can digital technologies, climate finance, and innovative de-risking instruments all be leveraged to scale bioeconomy financing?
More efficient. which is not substituting only the workforce, but also the decision making. So in this sense, we have analyzed these technologies and we see a lot of potential, not only because they have more, since they use the Internet of Things, they use artificial intelligence, they use remote perception. We see that they have superiority in terms of the human power. So how do we harness this superiority for the smallholders in the country? As a financial institution, we have a piece of the puzzle, which is that we have access to smallholders in the country, and it's a very important access because financing is an important input. And what we see is that there is a family of suppliers of technologies, such as, for example, input providers like Bayer. We have also the big techs that are producing these technologies, digital technologies. We have startups, but something that is common to all of them is that they have barriers to access these smallholders, so particularly in a country like Mexico. So that is the other piece of the puzzle. Our institution has access to smallholders, but has not the technologies, and the providers have the technologies but do not have access. So you can play a very significant role, putting you in the position of market making. Not substituting providers, but market making. So what is market making? Lowering barriers for producers. So what we are doing at this time is launching this platform where all the producers, smallholders are subscribed, because we subscribe them to this platform. And the platform already has 3 providers of technologies that are apps that can be uploaded, and they do, this satellite imaging that can make it more efficient. And they are specialized to serve the purpose of smallholders. So this represents very significant progress, because then producers can benefit of advice that makes them more efficient in terms, for example, of water use or chemical fertilizer use. And well, providers thrive in this market, or they are very likely to multiply their technologies and tropicalize them to Mexico. What we do is basically to absorb some of the cost. Whenever there is a financial product that our entity is supplying, so we believe that we can absorb this financial cost of the technologies, because these are less risk loans. Why? Because you have more visibility, better supervision, and better terms for originating the loans. So that will be for digital. On the other side, the financing, well, I just mentioned the guarantee products. They have been instrumental to bringing all the workforce of the financial system to focus on that family of finance.
Thank you very much, Alan. For you, Dr. Tegenye, what lessons can be drawn from Ethiopia's experience in financing the transformation of agri-food systems to align with bioeconomy principles, which is the theme of the GFFA this year?
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think the lesson we can learn from Ethiopia, from ATI, is the way it was organized, the way it was established is unique. That is a lesson for me. And we are able to influence policy. And as an example, I can cite the agricultural and rural development policy, which was enacted in April 2024. In that, well, land policy is very sensitive in Ethiopia. Land by constitution belongs to the government and the people, but practically it belongs to the government, I could say. That farmers were not able to use, well, they have the right to use. So they were not able to use land as collateral to get finance. So ATI has this privilege of policy formulation influencing the policy, that the land administration and use policy, the proclamation is changed. the agriculture and rural development policy is changed. Now farmers are able to use their land as collateral to get finance. Another one is, well, 5% of the loan was supposed to be allocated for agriculture. That was like the practice. In practice, it is not. But now the government gave direction and developed a directive which ATI assisted that banks should allocate 14–15% of the loan for the agriculture sector. That is a lesson probably what ATI has done. Another one in the agriculture and rural development policy, there is this article on establishing agricultural bank. And that is really a very big step. And today I was reading that the Agriculture Bank of China was one of the top 10 profitable companies in 2024, which is really promising. In addition, well, though we are a government institution, we mobilize our own resources. That means whenever the government is not really able to tap into finances abroad from development partners for whatever reason, ATI is able to mobilize and assist. And the good thing is, whatever ATI is demonstrating as a pilot, as an innovative project, then the government is scaling up. And that the WHEAT initiative is one, the Green Legacy initiative is another one, and so on. So I think there are a number of lessons from ATI, and well, Panos knows probably more than I do, and if he is given the chance, he can add. So there are, and the technology is also very important. The digital agriculture is like, ATI is championing that part, and the youth will be benefiting a lot. And we are getting finances to support that, like the project I was mentioning, sponsored by the MasterCard Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tegeni. Dominika, what role do national development banks, like what you described, play in facilitating access to finance for the bioeconomy at scale?
Well, thank you very much. As I said in my presentation, bridging the funding gap is absolutely the reason that we were created, right? De-risking the investments, these types of investments that are still very unknown to the banking sector, to when a loan comes to the commercial, is sold by the commercial side or the risk department, they don't know how to assess the risk. So I think that the raison d'etre, the reason of being of development banks, were to address those market imperfections. In the case of AFD, what we've done is we've addressed those high upfront costs and also the long gestation periods of these investments. And what we've done is we've worked with those companies in those sectors to understand what were the terms that they needed, what was the long gestation, what was the grace period that they needed. In the case of a lot of the forestry projects that we were seeing, they needed basically the first 7 years, the first 7 to 8 years, which was that they needed the first production. They needed a grace period. So we created a product that, for most banking, it was a bullet product, so it was all paid in the end. And also, I think that national development banks can be market makers. They can provide that patient capital. With the World Bank, we're now working on a fund that provides that patient capital for the forestry sector, because I think that we have the potential as a country to be a leader in commercial sustainable forestry, and that can produce a lot of biofuels, that can produce, and that can unlock a lot of different sectors that will be very important as an input for the bioeconomy. They can also create a pipeline of bankable projects, which is very, very hard for those working in sustainable finance. Getting that pipeline going and for those projects to be bankable, that's very hard. And I think that the bank can play a role. And also on the policy dialogue side, we are in a lot of task force tables and leading the discussions being we have a unique role as a national development bank to be able to be also a translator from the financial sector need, also from the private sector need, and create that policy dialogue with the government. I think that has been extremely important. We also can tailor financial instruments and provide policy expertise, particularly a very bespoke approach that is needed for the bioeconomy financing. I mentioned in my presentation earlier about sustainability-linked loans. We are now using that for a lot of our projects. On the forestry side, for example, on the commercial sustainable forestry, what we're doing is we are lowering the interest rates for those. So we give the loan on the traditional form, which already has an interesting interest rate. And for those who do the FSC certification, which is a sustainable forest certification, in 2 years, when they are certified, we have an important drop on the interest rate. So it's a sustainably linked financing. So it rewards that positive behavior. And on the livestock sector, we also managed to reduce, for those doing restoration of pastures, we've managed to reduce significantly the technical assistance and all of the technical work needed. And also we have 100 bips in different interest rates from normal products. And I think that leveraging that sector expertise is very important, reducing the cost of due diligence, having a tailored technical assistance. Development banks can anchor that, and it can anchor a lot of very inefficiently used technical assistance from other ministries, and we can anchor it and we can put it in a trust fund and spend it, I think, in a way that is actually needed for producers to lower the costs. And I cannot insist enough, it's very important to integrate all of these initiatives with the international strategy. We discuss a lot about the importance of having a bioeconomy strategy. Most countries don't, and they're still grappling with understanding the concept and what does that mean for their sectoral policy in their ministries. And I think that from the development bank's perspective, we can actually be able, interlocutors for that and be able to translate that.
Thank you very much, Dominica. Richard, last question for you. How can financial institutions like Rabobank increase financing for bioeconomic transformation, but especially for family farmers and smallholders, which are the bulk of our clients for many of the multilaterals today?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, what we do for smallholders especially, as I said and also explained in my presentation, is that what we do for smallholders, I think a very good example is that ACON program, because you really want to look at new income streams for smallholders in the bioeconomy and also help them to, I would say, reduce the impact of climate change on the business, because it's not only talking about income stream, it's also talking about how can you, as I said, improve the resilience of these farmer models. And the ACON program is one of the examples how we try to do that. So by capturing carbon, first of all, you improve our agroforestry systems. So also from an economic perspective, you have also a yield improvement, more yield per hectare of coffee, cocoa. Secondly, capturing carbon, and if you can sell it as a carbon reduction unit as an extra income stream, I think that's a very good example, so that you also anticipate and transform a risk or a problem, a challenge into a solution, an opportunity. And another example is, of course, the Rabo Foundation. And we have now, for example, finance a climate-smart agricultural organization in Indonesia who support rice farmers, more than 1,000, in deploying via working capital. They provide working capital to them, and by deploying a water scarcity solution tool, so to reduce, I would say, the use of water and more efficiently, they have a better, I would say, organization of how they can organize the water. But also, it is also having a positive impact on climate and a positive impact on their yield. And that's these kind of things that we are looking for and helping.
Great, thank you very much. Well, we do have a few minutes for questions. We can probably take one or two. I see a hand over here. Please introduce yourself and please let us know who you would like to direct your question to.
Thank you very much. Jochen is my name. I spent the last 30 years in climate change and renewable energy, and I would have a question. I would say I picked up on what you said at the very beginning, that the agrarian transition is not as important as the energy transition. I would disagree and say it's even more important because we had 30 years to get somewhere. You don't have 30 years.
Right.
We have, I would say, maybe 5 years. So the question is, and I pick up again on also what you said, Mr. Tegin, cross-sectoral approaches and a bit also the de-risking of investment, what you said, Dominika, and then say, Rabobank, you said, well, bioenergy is good for some biocombustion and it's good, solar irrigation is good. But now in this theme here of finance, can we leverage financeable models, bankable, renewable energy financeable models to really accelerate the agrarian transition, not just with some solar panels or some irrigation or some burning of wood, but to really use the financial model and the fact that banks have learned renewables, yeah, it took them long, to now really use that as a mechanism to finance the agrarian transition. And I put it to whoever wants to pick it up.
Thank you very much. Let's take maybe one more question. I'll have the panel think about this for a while. Any other questions from the audience, please? Please go ahead.
Yes, Juliana from the German Farmers Association. I have a question to you, Dominika, because you were speaking about your approach to sustainable finance, and I'm just wondering, since you also said or named the taxonomy in the beginning, I was wondering, what do you think of the European approach to sustainable finance, the taxonomy? It has been criticized, and also now there is an omnibus coming up, simplification package, probably also on the taxonomy. And yeah, I mean, transition financing is nowhere really to be seen there, for example. It's either or. So I'm really interested, and maybe also Richard, if you can comment there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, yeah, we have about 3 minutes left. So let's have Dominika answer the question that was posed to her and anyone else who wants to take the other question.
So two quick comments, one on de-risking. Today, development banks, unfortunately, have, especially I'm talking about national development banks, because probably the muscle power is coming from multilateral banks. We use mostly guarantee funds. And I think the most important things that we need to do is we need to have a solid capital markets, and we need to have venture capitalist funds, and we need to have also state-backed investments through investment funds that help scale this. And also on the project finance side, that was learned from the renewable energy sector, we need to be able to train this to the financial sector, because they will be very adverse to taking these types because they don't understand. And a lot of the emerging markets, the project finance regulation is still not that developed. But I think there's a lot of leapfrogging that we can do from the energy, and particularly in a lot of forward contracts and many other aspects. So I think that there's a role there. Today we can use guarantees. We can use also some skin in the game from capital market funds, and I think that can use to scale and also show that there is a skin in the game from the government in these types of policy initiatives. And on the taxonomy, I'm happy that you said that, because I didn't mention that. The green taxonomy, in terms of Latin America, obviously Europeans had time to discuss them, and I don't think that there's a one-size-fits-all policy. It's a very domestic process. The green taxonomy, the country that has been more successful in building them has been Colombia, and they haven't even finished all of their sectors, presumably. Brazil has been trying to build theirs for years. Mexico has their version. I don't know if they still finish. We are still in the process of building that, and it takes a lot of participatory effort. We're doing this with the support of IDB, but I say that has to be a living organism and a living document, because a lot of things change very quickly. And I think that for the financial sector, there's important incentives, particularly from the central bank, the regulator, in terms of banks having X amount of these types of credits in their portfolio and receiving a different type of treatment, it will be very interesting for actually banks to start. That will be an incentive, a positive incentive for banks to start giving green credits. And I think that's sometimes what's missing. I mean, you might have the green taxonomy, but there's not incentives from the regulator. So I think that's very important. And also in that participatory process, you need to have the voice of the producers and the sectors heard, and it's a negotiation, right? There is not it's never a win-win. Sometimes it's a trade-off. But I think that for the evolution of sustainable finance is absolutely necessary.
Thank you very much. Who wants the last word? Dr. Tegenye?
Actually, he mentioned my name, so I have to say something. Yes. Agriculture goes beyond the sector. Yes. ATI uses a value chain approach, so from input to consumption. And ATI is actually the secretariat for the Ethiopian Food and Nutrition Roadmap implementation. And then the financing comes. I mean, all across it has to be financed. And the government is really taking bold steps. And I think our donor community has a trust on ATI. For example, the value for money is very good. FAO study showed that, and I think the financing is also supporting what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are completely out of time. But I just want to thank all our panelists again for a very thought-provoking and interesting discussion on these pathways to achieve a more sustainable bioeconomy and how to, the role of public and private financial institutions. Thank you so much, all of you. Big hand, please.